Good afternoon. Bon après-midi à tous. Nous commençons la deuxième session de cette journée. We are starting the second session of this day with a very important speaker, as many speakers we have already heard. We're particularly happy to welcome Professor Dr. Peter Jeffery from Notre University in the US. He will introduce to us a very interesting topic linked to one of the directions that we have given to this musicological conference, which is preservation. He will speak about the criteria and desiderata for the safeguarding and revival of Syriac Christian music. And it's linked also to the discussions we had yesterday about what can we do, we speakers, we people academically studying this tradition, what can we do for the communities who are the living tradition. Peter, Professor Jeffery, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As we all know, Syriac chant faces many challenges, including economic and political stresses on communities in the Middle East, emigration and diaspora, which means the Syrian Christians now have many different native languages. Modern education does not support the years of training that traditional singers need. Modern economies do not provide financial incentives to support careers as church musicians. And the global advertainment industry promotes a model of what music is and what it is for that denigrates the value of traditional liturgical chant. So how do we ensure the survival of a musical tradition as ancient and beautiful as Christian chant in Syriac? Revivals of traditional music are actually quite common in modern times, to such an extent that there's even a book about them, the Oxford Handbook of Musical Revivals. So we actually know something about how people go about reviving music. One feature, music revivals are often promoted by activists who are seeking social change, which leads me to suggest there could be a role for catechesis in the Syrian churches. While the pop culture promotes cheap solutions to people's deep spiritual hungers, could Syriac chant be positioned as an alternative, with hymn texts being used in catechesis and the preparation of children to receive the sacraments? The spirituality of the Syriac fathers, the rich tradition of biblical exegesis, be packaged in ways that make them more accessible and appealing to young adults. Could monasticism be promoted as a positive lifestyle and a model of community that deserves broad social and financial support from the laity? Music revivals often involve a revaluation or reinterpretation of history. So what stories should we be telling about the histories of Syriac Christianity, its continuing relevance today, the beauty of Syriac liturgy and chant, the viability of Syriac spirituality as a guide for personal development and fulfillment today? Music revivals involve recontextualization and transformation. What does that mean? An example that comes from Swedish ethnologist Ove Ronström: a shift from a tradition mindscape to a heritage mindscape. In the Syriac diaspora, the shift from tradition to heritage is already happening. So how to promote the knowledge of and respect for Syrian chant in the new context? one example, the use of new technologies such as the internet. This is a website you probably all know from the Christian Musicological Society of India, using internet technologies, apps. This is an app you can buy for your smartphone. We could develop apps that make more use of Syrian music. Publications, an example that will be known to many of you, sort of modeled on the kinds of hymnals that you have in Western churches, but full of Syriac hymnody, and quite informative in that it includes music, the Syriac text, a transliteration, a translation, some information about the history of the melody, and so on. An extremely useful book, I think, and an example of something that can be done in a diaspora situation. Recording projects. Are there expert singers whose knowledge should be preserved in recordings while they are still active? Music revivals always raise questions about legitimacy and authenticity. What is really the authentic tradition? Who are the legitimate teachers and bearers of the tradition? Is always an issue. Okay, well, let's just say that. An example we can look to in North America, for some centuries, there were attempts to suppress the languages of the indigenous Native American groups. And in the late 20th century, there began to be efforts to try to revive them and bring them back. Many tribes, the languages are only spoken by the elderly people. They're not being taught to the children. So what do you do about that? I think this provides a model we can adapt. Among the estimated 154 indigenous languages still remaining in the United States, half are spoken by only a handful of elders over 70 and are not being taught to the children. So what has been done about that? A great deal, and many of the efforts involve the following: documentation projects involving young people, getting young people out to talk to the elderly people and record the language, if there's study written texts, if there are written texts, and so on. Also cases where young people and entire families are paired with expert speakers so that they can speak to native speakers and learn the language from native speakers, not from linguists, but from people who are members of the culture. Immersion programs in schools, and some tribes are using ceremonial and music as well, which is exactly what we're talking about with Syriac liturgy. They found that using music is a helpful way to teach the indigenous language. One author says, music is a fundamental element in human life. It's everywhere. It enchants the listener, involves his or her emotions, helps develop skills in interpreting complex symbols. It's an ideal medium for the development of social skills. So if music is this helpful in teaching indigenous languages, it can surely be helpful in teaching traditional music that also comes with its own language. So a Syriac chant revival could involve documentation projects involving young people, musically talented young people paired with expert singers so that they learn the tradition directly from the singers. Immersion programs in schools, perhaps, or some kind of school programs. Presenting the ceremonial as interesting and exciting kind of activity. And of course, teaching the music itself. On top of that, there are a number of international guidelines for safeguarding cultural heritage, especially non-material cultural heritage. There's some UNESCO documents. The actual term is intangible cultural heritage. And the most important one, the 2003 document, ratified by 155 countries, recognizes oral traditions, languages, performing arts, rituals, among the kinds of heritage that need to be safeguarded against grave threats of deterioration, disappearance, and destruction. Safeguarding means ensuring the viability of intangible cultural heritage, including a long list of things, documentation, research, preservation, etc., through formal and non-formal education, as well as the revitalization of various aspects. It's also essential to ensure the widest possible participation of communities, groups, and individuals where appropriate. It's essential that it be a community effort. The whole community comes together. A good example of this, I think, is in the Coptic chant world, is tasbaha.org. It's a group effort with a lot of people are involved, and you see you can download tunes, you can get today's readings. There's various new events that have been recorded, made available. There's discussions and so on. And this was not run by academics. You can tell because, for instance, they don't use Unicode for the Coptic or the Arabic. It's run by Copts. It's run, you know, you might say from bottom up rather than top down. It's a very impressive example of what can be done when a community can pull itself together, even a community that's in diaspora, as the Copts are. Whereas this is an example of what can happen. This was a very informative website about Ukrainian, Belarusian sacred monody, but it's now defunct. It just didn't have enough community support to keep going. I don't know exactly what happened, but whoever was running it just couldn't do it anymore. Then UNESCO even has this process where intangible cultural heritages can get official recognition, and Byzantine chant just got that recognition in 2019. The hard part is you need at least one nation has to sponsor it and take responsibility. And in the case of Syrian chant, I'm not so sure what nation that would be. But examples of other Christian traditions that have received this UNESCO, that are on the UNESCO registry, Christmas celebrations in Belarus, the Feast of the Cross in Ethiopia, Feast of the 40 Holy Martyrs from Yugoslavia, Georgian winemaking, Armenian cross stones, Bulgarian has a regional center for safeguarding their intangible cultural heritage, and these are registered with UNESCO, which means that the sponsoring country every 4 years has to file a report with UNESCO about what they're doing to keep the intangible cultural heritage going. It may not be enough, but it's something. And another possibility, when a tradition has this kind of recognition, it might be easier to get private funding by saying, well, we're supporting something that's been recognized by UNESCO as something of value and of interest on a worldwide basis. So a summary of my recommendations include Syriac chant and hymnody in catechesis and adult education within the churches, promote monasticism in the Syriac churches, develop appealing narratives that encourage pride in the history and culture of Syriac Christianity, enlist new technologies to manage the shift from tradition mindscape to heritage mindscape, identify authoritative teachers, ensure their knowledge is preserved in archival quality recordings, employ the techniques of language revival, including documentation projects involving young people and families paired with expert singers, programs in schools, ritual and ceremonial, use music as a way to teach Syriac. Consider utilizing UNESCO guidelines and programs for safeguarding intangible and cultural heritage. And that's it.
Thank you, Professor Jeffery. I just want to remind shortly that you are the author of one of the probably most consulted articles this audience is working with, the origin of the Quaraquosh linked to Jerusalem. So we're particularly honored to have you here today and speaking about a topic that is forward-looking, because we are talking what we should do also. Thank you so much for these very interesting suggestions. We believe it's very interesting to think about a structured approach to safeguarding this heritage, and it probably should be done as a collaboration between the many Syriac churches to be stronger and to have effect in all the countries where the Syriac tradition is present. I now would like to leave the floor to some questions of the participants first. Are there any questions among our distinguished participants? We have a few questions online. Oh, we have Professor Abu Murad. Please.
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you, Professor Jeffery. I'm very pleased to see you after reading you a lot and referring to your works. Only one question after this very interesting presentation about why do you propose to shift from tradition to heritage? And we know that tradition has a very interesting value to music. So what is the purpose behind this proposition? Thank you.
Well, I'm not saying that it must happen if it's not necessary, but in diaspora situations in countries where people are growing up speaking Western languages and listening to Western entertainment and so on, it seems to me that retaining a connection to the Syriac heritage to the Syriac tradition heritage is going to be different than growing up in Syria or Lebanon or Iraq or somewhere. So the questions like why should young people be interested in this are going to have different answers. I think it's unavoidable in diaspora situations.
We have a question from Luca Ricossa, participant. Mr. Jeffery, Professor Jeffery, how many people today speak natively Gregorian chant? That's a provocation.
Well, that's a good question, and Gregorian chant could use its own revival, but after the Second Vatican Council, there was a rush of enthusiasm for using popular music and guitar music and non-European music and so on, and the decline hit the bottom in the 1980s, and after that it started to turn around again. So there are people who are more interested in it than people were, and the infrastructure for teaching it is starting to be rebuilt. It will probably never be as universal as it was in the 1950s, but the effort to bring it back is actually not so different from what I described. That it's not anyone's native language, but it could be promoted as something valuable that that more people need to know about. And in the case of Gregorian chant, it's not just Catholics. There's a lot of people who are interested in it for historical reasons as the earliest form of Western music, or who see it as a spiritual, enriching kind of music, even though they reject Christianity itself. So the potential is there for a wider appreciation of Gregorian chant than there is. And I could point out that recordings of Gregorian chant often sell very well.
Yes, yes, Professor Jeffery, thank you very much for your presentation. I would have a question. You mentioned the possibility or the idea of putting Syriac chant on the list of intangible heritage. And it's true that it could be done more or less now involving multiple countries, because of course Syriac chant is widespread. My question to you and to the other participant, was there any discussions before about it?
Not that I know of. But Byzantine chant was supported by both Greece and Cyprus. So it is possible to have more than one country supporting an application.
One thing maybe we can say that, in contrast to what happens for Gregorian, the sense of cultural identity in the Syriac community remains very strong also in the diaspora. But certainly the question is, how eternal questions, how traditions survive outside of their native countries, because very quickly they start mixing with the local culture. So we go back to other questions. But definitely there should be an effort to support the communities in their homelands. If I think of many countries of the Middle East where the Syriac communities have been forbidden to speak and write Syriac under the Ottoman Empire, and so have basically shifted to Arabic or other native languages to express an effort also to revive the use of the Syriac alphabet when speaking the dialects, the modern dialects, would be a very nice initiative. And we have seen such a project happening close to us in Lausanne. So that's maybe something we will be able to propose. Are there any other questions, maybe online? Yes. So I see one question. Thank you very much, Professor Jeffery. How can Oriental music be transcribed without losing its origins?
Well, if you're talking about transcription onto the 5-line Western staff, which is usually what we mean, the fact is that you do lose something because the 5-line Western staff does not capture everything. It's difficult to show non-Western tunings, and it's very difficult to show rhythms that fit the standard Western model. So I say wherever possible, transcriptions should be paired with recordings, because recordings capture a lot more information than notation does.
There is a remark from Violaine Trantezeau. It would be very important to put the Syriac music at the UNESCO, the melodies which still respect the Syriac melody without the Arabic melody. And she underlines that Ivar Schmutzschwaler's methodology has an answer to give in this matter. Professor Jeffery, we would be delighted if you would look at the methodology of Ivar Schmutzschwaler, which is being published with this Congress for the first time.
Okay.
It's going to be a joint effort to check it in from various angles.
Okay, let me just say, this is an example of the authenticity issue, that making a decision as to what are Arabic incursions that don't really belong in the tradition. You're making determinations about authenticity.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Jeffery. If there are no other questions, he deserves a warm applause.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Professor Jeffery, will you stay with us?
Yes.
Great. Our next speaker is Father Fadi Nissan. He comes from Iraq, but he's currently giving service in France at the parish of Saint Ephrem in Lyon. And he's a lover of Syriac chants. His tradition is the Chaldean tradition. And he will present to us the chants of the Chaldean Church. Father Nissan, the floor is yours.
Bonjour. Je tiens à remercier tout d'abord les organisateurs de ce colloque, spécialement Madame Neville et Professeur Bouvier, de m'avoir invité à participer et à parler ici, avec vous, mes professeurs, d'un thème que regarde les chants de l'Église chaldéenne. Mon intervention n'est pas une intervention musicale, ni linguistique. Je ne suis pas un poète, ni liturgique. Je ne suis pas un liturgiste, mais plutôt une simple présentation de ce que je connais et je chante toujours dans l'Église chaldéenne, depuis mon jeune âge jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Donc, c'est un témoignage sur mon expérience vécue avec notre rite. Je partage avec vous ce que j'ai reçu de mes pères en matière d'information et de chant, laissant ce qui concerne l'analyse et l'étude aux spécialistes de la musique et aux linguistiques. Mon père aussi est un prêtre, donc je suis né dans une famille un petit peu sacerdotale qui a déjà toujours entendu les mélodies, les chants de l'Église chaldéenne. Je voudrais aborder 4 sujets dans mon intervention. D'abord, une présentation brève de l'histoire de l'Église chaldéenne. Ensuite, les caractéristiques générales des chants de l'Église chaldéenne. Après, les formes de ces chants. Enfin, leur place dans notre vie comme croyants. Première chose, présentation historique de l'Église chaldéenne. L'Église chaldéenne, comme vous le savez, mes professeurs, mes chers frères, est une église fondée en Mésopotamie, est issue de l'Église d'Orient. La tradition actuelle de l'Église chaldéenne nous dit que les apôtres qui ont prêché dans cette région sont 4. L'apôtre Thomas, puis Addaï et ses disciples Marie et Daggaï. Vers la fin du 1er siècle et le début du 2e siècle. Cette tradition a été établie à partir du 4e siècle. Elle a fait son chemin jusqu'à nous et nous est parvenue à travers les générations. Au fil des jours, la langue liturgique officielle de l'Église chaldéenne est la langue araméenne chaldéenne. Donc, les prières et les chants de cette Église sont écrits et chantés principalement en araméen, tandis que la langue arabe a été employée plus tard. L'Église chaldéenne a une immense richesse théologique et intellectuelle. Elle a des grands génies, penseurs et théologiens, nous le mentionnons plus tard, qui ont joué un rôle majeur dans la diffusion et l'interprétation de la pensée et de la théologie orientale par le moyen des chants qui sont encore chantés jusqu'à nos jours. Les chants, si j'ose le dire, est une manière d'enseignement, manière de diffuser et enraciner la foi chez les croyants. L'Église chaldéenne est une Église qui a souffert et souffre encore des persécutions avec les autres Églises orientales à cause de sa foi et de sa façon dont elle vit la foi. Dans une région très perturbée par les guerres comme la Mésopotamie. Cette région, depuis toujours, était considérée comme un carrefour qui liait les pays voisins. C'est vrai que cela en soi est une richesse culturelle. Mais en même temps, cela pourrait être une véritable menace pour la présence de l'Église chaldéenne et les autres églises, bien sûr, sœurs, dont la région est aussi pour l'héritage culturel, liturgique, spirituel, transmis des premières générations. Quelles sont les caractéristiques générales des chants de l'Église chaldéenne? Ce que je peux dire. 1. Ils sont liés principalement au livre sacré en termes d'inspiration de textes de l'Ancien Testament, en particulier les psaumes et du Nouveau Testament. 2. Ils sont liés à la liturgie et au rite des sacrements. Je connais les chants chaldéens toujours liés à la liturgie et au rite des sacrements. 3. Ils sont liés aux premiers saints-pères du 4e et 5e siècle, qui étaient également connus par les richesses de leurs pensées théologiques, spirituelles et linguistiques. Je mentionne ici le plus important d'entre eux. Première, c'est Mar Shimon bar Sabba'i. Il avait écrit beaucoup de prières d'enseignement. Une de ces prières que nous a donné est toujours un chant très beau et très riche que les enfants et les anciens connaissent. C'est l'Akhumara. C'est du 3e siècle que nous chantons toujours aujourd'hui dans la messe et les autres rites. Ça veut dire à toi, ô Seigneur. On considère ce chant comme un des plus anciens chants chaldéens. Mar Ephrem, il a composé de nombreuses homélies, médrash, poèmes, louanges et dîmes. Et nous ne pouvons pas tous les citer. Mais je peux mentionner un beau médrash que nous le chantons le 4e dimanche de l'Annonciation, qui est Madrash Shwih Souvarach. Sois glorifié ton Annonciation. Marmaroutha était connu comme l'auteur des hymnes de martyrs, Oniaf al-Sahdik, que nous le chantons pendant la prière de matin et de soir. Oniaf al-Sahdik, et nous récitons encore dans les prières d'office de matin et de soir. Mar Narsei, c'est comme un Mar Ephrem, qu'il est considéré l'un des auteurs les plus célèbres de l'Église orientale. Plus la richesse de sa pensée et de sa profonde spiritualité, il a composé de nombreuses homélies, poèmes, louanges, hymnes. Je peux citer parmi eux les rogations d'Ninève ou bien les supplications d'Ninève. Qariana Première Qariana de Ba'outha. Première lecture de mercredi de Nineveh. Quatrième, les chants chaldéens sont écrits et composés sur la base de la langue araméenne chaldéenne. Ils sont toujours chantés en cette langue. Par contre, nous avons du mal à appliquer les mélodies de ces chants avec la traduction arabe ou d'autres langues. Il est donc très difficile de respecter les mélodies originelles de ces chants chaldéens quand on les chante traduits dans une autre langue. Ils risquent de perdre le sens original du texte, car parfois on essaie de modifier et de les changer certainement pour que l'intonation soit harmonieuse. C'est une trahison du texte original. 5. Les chants chaldéens ont la simplicité d'une part et la beauté d'autre part. La simplicité se reflète dans l'absence des transitions vocales exigées par la soliste ou par le groupe de diacres, chamaché. Vous le savez, cher professeur, cher sœur, que nous n'avons pas de chorale dans les rites chaldéens, mais nous avons des goudas, ça veut dire de deux corps des diacres. La plupart des chants, Oniafa, louange, Tishbuhiafa, Epsom, Mazmoure, ont une mélodie simple que chacun peut apprendre et enseigner aux autres. Quant à sa beauté, elle est évidente dans ses liens avec les mélodies de l'environnement oriental et de la région dans laquelle ils ont été inspirés et composés. Et donc, ils peuvent créer dans l'esprit du chanteur et de l'auditeur un sentiment religieux lié à la terre, à l'histoire, à la tradition mésopotamienne. 6. Les chants chaldéens ils ont été transmis par la tradition orale, par des diacres, des prêtres ou bien des évêques qui avaient le don de mémoriser les chants et la capacité de les transmettre à ceux qui voulaient l'apprendre. Par conséquent, les mélodies ont été d'abord transmises dans les monastères et les séminaires, puis transférées et enseignées dans les églises. 7. Nous ne trouvons pas dans les livres rituels une trace de notes ou de symboles musicaux qui nous aident à dire que nos mélodies sont basées sur une base musicale spécifique. Au contraire, tout ce que nous pouvons trouver sont les suivantes. Des titres ou des strophes clés. Par exemple, nous avons Qala, comme vous les avez mentionné, professeur, Resh Qala, mais il y a deux autres choses, Shuhlapa et Broukaw. Ce sont 4 clés. Qala, c'est la voix. Resh Qala, c'est le titre de ce chant. Shuhlapa, c'est la substitution selon la forme X. Et Broukaw, c'est selon la forme. Donc, pour connaître la mélodie d'un chant, il faut connaître tous les titres, soit Qala, Shuhlapa ou Broukaw. De temps en temps, on trouve le mot Broukaw, ça veut dire selon la forme. Par exemple, nous trouvons des termes comme ce chant est chanté selon le Qala X, voix, ou bien ce Midrash est chanté selon le titre de Midrash X. Même les Midrash dans les églises chaldéennes a pas des Qala, mais des titres qui indiquent le premier Midrash chanté selon cette mélodie. Nous trouvons aussi dans les livres liturgiques des couleurs. C'est banal, mais il faut mentionner à mon avis. Par exemple, la couleur rouge indique le début du chant par un soliste, soit un diacre ou d'un prêtre. Quant à la couleur noire, elle représente le rôle de chœur ou de groupe des diacres. Dans les livres liturgiques, nous trouvons aussi des formes en point qui peuvent aider le chanteur à connaître la mélodie, la manière de la chanter ou le changement de la mélodie ou sa vitesse. Par exemple, nous trouvons 2 points ou 4 points ou bien une étoile. 8e point. Les chants chaldéens sont chantés en seule voix. Ils commencent par un soliste suivi par les chœurs de diacres ou ce que nous appelons Gouda Qadmaya, Gouda Dahraya, le premier et le dernier chœur. On ne retrouve jamais dans les mélodies des chants chaldéens les différents styles musicaux de l'Occident, harmonie, canon, etc. 9. Les chants chaldéens sont basés sur des échelles mélodiques orientales simples que le chanteur oriental peut le reconnaître et les chanter facilement, bien sûr, avec une bonne formation et bon entraînement. 10. L'Église chaldéenne n'a reconnu aucun instrument de musique accompagnant les chants. Par exemple, les cymbales, les cloches, les triangles, les cloches, les cordes sont étrangers. Et par conséquent, nous ne trouvons aucune mention de leur utilisation dans le livre liturgique, tels que la messe, les laudes, les vêpres et d'autres sacrements. En fait, l'oreille et la gorge sont les 2 seuls chanteurs et compositeurs des hymnes de l'Église d'Orient, les Chaldéens. 11. Les chants chaldéens ont des noms liés à la fonction liturgique et à leur place dans l'ordre de la prière liturgique et liés à l'architecture de l'Église même. Par exemple, il y a un chant de Saint des Saints, parce que ce chant il était chanté devant la porte de Saint des Saints. Il y a un chant qui s'appelle Onifat Bema, parce qu'il est chanté sur un estrade au milieu de l'église. Il y a Onifat Raza, par exemple, par ce chant des mystères, parce qu'il est chanté au moment de l'offertoire. Il y a aussi le chant de l'évangile, Onifat Evangelion, parce qu'il est chanté lors de la procession de l'évangile. Il y a, par exemple, Onifat Lilia Sapra, chant de l'aube et du soir. Et les chants des Sahdi, Onifat Sahdi, les chants des martyrs dans les prières du matin et du soir. 3e point, quelles sont les formes des chants chaldéens? L'Église chaldéenne a de nombreuses formes des chants qui se distinguent entre elles par leur contenu, leur mélodie et leur interprétation musicale. J'évoque les plus importantes d'entre elles, pas toutes. Première forme, il s'appelle Onitha, court chant. Composé d'un poème court avec une mélodie simple, se retrouve dans tous les rites liturgiques et dans toutes les prières, matin, l'heure, soir, vêpres. Ces noms dépendent de l'endroit ou du moment où ils ont été utilisés dans la prière. Ces mélodies sont basées sur des strophes mélodiques que nous appelons Reshqala, Qala, Shuhlapa, Broukao. Ils ont chanté alternativement par le chœur de diacre, mais précédés d'un verset de psaume ou d'écriture chanté par un soliste. Deuxième forme, c'est le midrash, madrasha. Signification, exégèse, étude, explication, leçon. Caractérisé par des textes riches et longs et des belles mélodies, ils représentent des enseignements doctrinaux, spirituels, pour leurs croyants qui les entendent et les chantent. Ils ne chantent que leurs défaites et mémoriaux importants. Ils ne se trouvent pas dans toutes les prières liturgiques. Sa mélodie de midrash dépend d'un mot ou d'une phrase, indique un midrash précédent qui avait une mélodie spécifique. Chaque midrash a des strophes et un refrain, un unaya. Le soliste chante les strophes et le chœur des diacres répète le unaya, le refrain. À mon avis, il est mieux d'avoir une belle voix pour chanter les midrash avec performance. Troisième forme finale, tishbuhta, signification louange, sont des versets poétiques peuvent être courts et longs selon la prière. Par exemple, les louanges de matin sont souvent courtes, mais celles des grandes fêtes sont longues. Ces mélodies sont uniques, c'est-à-dire chaque louange a une mélodie distincte, pas comme les midrash et les unayat. Les tishbuhiyat, elles sont toujours chantées alternativement par deux chœurs de diacres et jamais par un soliste. Dernier paragraphe pour conclure. La place des chants de l'Église chaldéenne dans notre vie comme croyants. Ils expriment notre origine depuis le premier siècle du christianisme. Et à travers des chants, nous découvrons notre identité, notre histoire, notre racine. Ils nous aident à connaître la structure de l'Église chaldéenne même, son architecture et les hiérarchies ecclésiastiques et les relations entre l'ensemble. En comprenant les chants chaldéens, nous découvrons comment la prière liturgique a été organisée entre le célébrant, les diacres et le peuple. Les chants chaldéens expriment nos croyances et notre foi originelle. Ainsi, quiconque récitera ces chants remarquera dans leur profondeur ce en quoi nos pères croyaient depuis les premiers siècles et ce qu'ils nous ont transmis et en termes de croyances et héritage, trésor spirituel et dogmatique. Les chants chaldéens expriment notre culture et à travers elles, nous montrons la nature de la poésie, des poèmes, des chants et de la terminologie qui a été répandue dans notre passé et qui nous sont parvenus aujourd'hui. Les chants chaldéens gardent notre mémoire. En fait, nous nous rappelons à travers ces chants que nous ne sommes pas un peuple récent ou un peuple d'aujourd'hui, mais un peuple descendant de tous les pères et les mères qui ont vécu, ont cru, ont transmis tout ce qu'elles avaient et nous avons des mémoires pour que le mémoire reste vivante. Les chants chaldéens expriment notre avenir. L'Église chaldéenne n'existe pas aujourd'hui par hasard, mais elle était présente dans les pensées des premiers apôtres et des saints-pères. Ce qui signifie que l'avenir de l'Église repose essentiellement sur cet héritage religieux, artistique et linguistique. Plus nous le transmettons aux générations futures, plus notre Église reste vivante à travers l'histoire. Conclusion, je pense qu'organiser ce type de conférence est très important pour persévérer l'héritage de l'Église d'Orient en général et dans mon Église chaldéenne en particulier. Car notre Église traverse aujourd'hui des situations très difficiles en Mésopotamie, et ce qui a conduit à la migration de nombreuses personnes, diacres, chœurs qui chantaient, ravivaient, transmettaient cet héritage. Il y a donc un risque d'oublier beaucoup des chants et leurs mélodies non enregistrés et non documentés. J'espère qu'il y aura des opportunités pour documenter, enregistrer et persévérer ces chants afin de leur transmettre fidèlement aux générations futures. Merci beaucoup.
Merci Pierre Nissan. Un petit applaudissement. Père Nissan, merci d'avoir donné ce témoignage très vivant d'une personne qui, cela transparaît très bien, aime sa tradition passionnément et qui souffre de voir qu'elle est en danger, que surtout à sa source, les gens quittent, les gens précisément qui sont ceux qui transmettent. Je me permets de maintenant demander s'il y a des questions dans l'Assemblée. Parmi les participants, any question among the participants? Any comments? Do we have any comment online? Yes.
Bonjour, je vais donc transmettre des commentaires qui ont été adressés au père Fadi, Lyon, Nissan. Les premières viennent de la part d'un spectateur de Nicolas Algelu. Ils disent Père Fadi, respectueusement, il est historiquement inexact de parler d'une église ou d'une tradition ecclésiastique chaldéenne avant le VIe siècle ou d'une langue araméenne chaldéenne. La tradition de l'Église catholique chaldéenne est le rite syriaque oriental et découle de l'Église orientale, et sa langue liturgique est la prononciation orientale du syriac, qui était un terme impropre désigné comme chaldéenne par Rome pour distinguer les sunniates qui ont quitté l'Église d'Orient de ceux du rite syriaque occidental. Père Fadi.
Oui, je suis d'accord avec vous, Nicolas, car l'histoire, elle est toujours divisée en deux parties. Chaque église, elle peut dire ce qu'elle pense. Donc, je ne suis pas ici pour défendre l'église chaldéenne, mais comme j'ai abordé tout d'abord, c'est un témoignage de ce que j'ai reçu par rapport à l'église chaldéenne. Donc, je laisse cette question aux historiens pour définir qu'est-ce que ça veut dire l'église chaldéenne, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire l'église d'Orient, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire l'église assyrienne, l'église syriaque. Donc, je suis ici pour simplement aborder la question des mélodies de l'église chaldéenne. Ce que je peux dire pour le moment, peut-être des autres professeurs pour m'aider à sortir de ce débat historique.
Merci, Père Fadi.
Il y a une question de Luca Ricossa.
Oui, aussi, Luca Ricossa, entre guillemets, ils disent pour distinguer les sunniates qui ont quitté l'Église d'Orient de ceux du rite syriaque occidental, on ferme les guillemets. Cette distinction est importante, n'est-ce pas?
Pardon, je n'ai pas compris la question. Excuse-moi.
En fait, il cite pour distinguer les sunniates qui ont quitté l'Église d'Orient de ceux du rite syriaque occidental, il ferme la cite. Et donc là, il se demande, cette distinction est importante, n'est-ce pas? Mais sinon, Monsieur Luca Ricossa, vous pouvez prendre la parole aussi.
Oui.
Ah, peut-être il
Oui, bonjour. J'avais fait cette remarque à propos de la question précédente, n'est-ce pas? C'est que je trouve cette distinction entre les catholiques de rite syriaque oriental et ceux qui ne sont pas catholiques quand même importante, c'est-à-dire que les désignés du terme de chaldéen n'est peut-être pas inapproprié, peut-être historiquement tardif, mais sert à désigner une réalité quand même.
C'est clair que là, une chose dont on ne parle pas vraiment parce que ce n'est pas le thème aujourd'hui, mais c'est clair que ça a influencé les traditions et leurs différences, c'est les divisions des églises. Donc, c'est clair que nous avons l'église chaldéenne, elle sort de l'église effectivement de orientale, nestorienne, aujourd'hui assyrienne. Donc c'est intéressant aussi d'étudier justement ce qui s'est passé dans ces traditions avec ces divisions pour notre thème des échanges et influences. Le professeur Aboumrad.
Oui, merci. Je voudrais féliciter le père Fadi Nissan pour cette présentation, son témoignage qui est très modeste et très de l'intérieur, très émouvant. Je voudrais simplement signaler qu'il y a deux travaux qui ont été réalisés au cours des 15 dernières années sur la modalité, en fait sur la grammaire de la musique assyro-chaldéenne ou chaldéenne, ou comme vous voulez l'appeler selon les différents points de vue historiques et ecclésiaux. C'est Dr Noël Zarifé, qui est une chercheuse musicologue libanaise d'origine chaldéenne, a fait un mémoire de master dans notre université sur ce sujet, puis ensuite elle a poursuivi par un doctorat. C'est intéressant de pouvoir alimenter vos informations. J'aimerais beaucoup que vous puissiez, je parle à Madame Nebel et au professeur Xavier, donc de pouvoir rentrer en contact avec cette chercheuse qui a fait un travail remarquable sur le plan donc, du système musical chaldéen, assyro-chaldéen.
Merci beaucoup, professeur Mra, de nous signaler cette étudiante. Et
je vous enverrai ses coordonnées si vous voulez.
Je veux remercier. Il y a une question, voilà. Est-ce qu'il y a
Il y a une question encore du professeur Ricossa. Avez-vous un projet d'enregistrer les chants dans votre paroisse?
Ça, c'est sûrement, car je pense que la manière d'aujourd'hui urgente de persévérer ces chants chaldéens est l'enregistrer. Donc, il y a un projet à enregistrer ces chants dans une manière très organisée en Suède, par exemple, avec des collègues musiciens avec les instruments orientaux. Oui, il y a un projet qu'il y a à l'avenir de réaliser ces enregistrements. Oui.
Merci beaucoup, Père Nissan. Est-ce qu'il y a encore d'autres questions? Merci beaucoup. C'est d'autant plus précieux que la tradition orientale syriaque est parmi les moins étudiées et documentées. Et donc, merci de nous avoir signalé cette étudiante et ces enregistrements. Et merci, Père Nissan, d'avoir ce projet. Nous restons en Irak, puisque nous avons notre prochain conférencieux, Jalal Polus Gajo, qui est étudiant à la Haute École de musique et qui est aussi soutenu par notre fondation pour son master en ethnomusicologie. Il a comme projet de transcrire les 3 sous-traditions irakiennes catholiques, syriaque catholique. Il est lui-même syriaque catholique, mais il a grandi en Irak et il a ensuite vécu 17 ans au Liban, où il a été moine dans l'église syriaque catholique, dans l'ordre éphramique. Et donc, il a une connaissance intime de sa liturgie depuis l'intérieur. J'ai entendu une fois un professeur byzantin dire les meilleurs musiciens dans toute l'histoire de l'Église, ce sont les gens qui ont pratiqué la liturgie tous les jours, parce qu'ils la comprennent de l'intérieur. Et donc, c'est d'autant plus précieux d'avoir une personne qui a cette expérience et qui a vécu cette liturgie, ces chants de l'intérieur. Jalal Polus, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, all of participants. Thank you, Véronique. Thank you, Monsieur Bouvier, for this occasion to speak for my tradition. Can I share my screen?
Sure.
So, my speak, it will be about a comparative analysis of the Mosul, Barthalla, and Barthalla Syriac Catholic music tradition for Holy Week, interaction and influence. I will make very short introduction to show what is Mosul, Barthalla, Barthalla, and then we will speak about tones or melodies and chants that in the Holy Week. Then we will take three examples, both at Hasho and Ba'uthu Mar Ephrem, Ba'uthu Mar Yaqub. Then we will take a rite of Nahira, like another example, and then there is Hasho mode, which addition of octo echoes, we have another mode which name Hasho. So introduction, what is Quaraquosh and Mosul and Barthalla? We could see in the map we are here in Switzerland, and we will go to the Iraq in this part. In this part, it will appear here Mosul and here Erbil. In the middle, you will see it will appear Barthalla. You see this is Barthalla, and Baghdad this. So the distance between them is sometimes people they count like this, but it's very little, like less than 25 kilometers. But with going for autoroute, some they count as 30. But between Baghdad and Barthalla, it's only like 7 kilometers. Okay, going back to our introduction. So you know now where we are speaking, and I would like to say also, from here Tikrit, if you see this, there was in the 7th, 8th century. Yes, they see. There was Christian community came to Mosul and Baghdad and Barthalla and for another places, so they take with them their tradition. In Iraq there is church, Chaldean church, and Assyrian, Syriac Catholic and Syriac Orthodox. Now, this is these three towns. Mosul is the capital of the region of Nineveh, and Baghdad it's my town. It's like 50,000 people. It's not village but town, and Barthalla it's in between. For Baghdad, the people they are worker hardly in culture and many work. In Mosul, sure it's city, therefore they have more education. They for teaching and arts. In Barthalla, they have many writers and thinkers. Therefore, there is many figures from Barthalla. Holy Week. We will speak about chants and melodies that appear in Holy Week. Which there is two sources. The first is our book, which is Panqitho number 5, and the reads, which is Nahira, washing the feet, crucifixion, resurrection, peace, all these read. So in the Holy Week rites, we have the book of rites of Eastern tradition, but for the hour it was make it by the Patriarch in 1886, the order to make one books, which is Panqitho, and they mentioned all the prior. Therefore, I believe there is mixed between our traditions and maybe some they lose. And with the Beth Gazo is the dictionary. So also we have Beth Gazo of East, but in reality we are using Beth Gazo of West, which is so near, maybe we could say 80-90%, but it's not absolute what we pray. Therefore, I hope some days we could approach the Beth Gazo of East. If we count the melodies that appear in the Holy Weeks, we will find from both our and right, it's 135. And from this melody, many melodies they appear during the year, and some they are specific for Holy Week. And those what is more important. In Baghdad, we found 32, it's specific for Holy Week. In Mosul, 27. In Barthalla, 30 melodies, which is specific. So, for I could making groups for this melody, make them 4 groups. Group, they are fixed melody, which they appear like Anione or Ma'irone. They pass during all the year. The second group, the Polos, which have 8 melodies, and in this group, when it appear in Holy Week, we used the 7th mode. So the 7th melody we used in Holy Week. The third, it's the Qolos that they mentioned as a 8 melody, but they have addition melody for the Holy Week. So when they appear in Holy Week, like Qukoyo, there is 8, but we don't use from this 8 anyone, but we use one which is named Hasho melody, not Hasho mode, because we will pass to the Hasho mode. And the fourth is a special melody for the Holy Week, which appear only in the Holy Week, and it's not in the Octo Ecos. So the most important is number 3 and number 4. I will pass to the comparison of some of the Holy Week chant. We say our study is comparison between Quaraquosh and Mosul and Barthalla. So I will choose three, the verse of sadness, both at Hasho, and prayer of Saint Ephrem, Ba'uthod Mar Ephrem, and prayer of Jacob, Ba'uthod Mar Yaqub. This because simply there is many, as we say, there is many melodies, but we should take only simple example. So those, because it's appear during all the weekend, all the Holy Week. Each prayer there is both at Hasho and one of prayer of Saint Ephrem and or Saint Jacob. Second, it's a special for Iraqi tradition. I don't hear it before from the Western tradition. So here we could pass to all of participants. You have this document. You can follow me in and also in the Ekra. Both at Hasho, we will see they are almost here in Baghdad. This and here in Barthalla. So in Baghdad there is 2 versions, and in Barthalla there is 2 versions, and we will pass for Mosul. we will see the like in Quaraquosh, بريخ مور حاشوخ دو حلوفا بريخ موخوخ ميطولوثا. Okay. I put the first one and then autre because it name in Syriac مشحلفو. مشحلفو it chant each time the first this melody, then they chant in this. In Barthalla and Baghdad, the main melody is the same, but when it chants, it's not the same. In Mosul, it's almost like this, but there is little different. I would like to this Mar Ephrem. I would like to take with you بعوث Mar Yaqub, because we say our comparison is between melodies and structure and mode. So we will see how the mode will change here. In بعوث Mar Yaqub. بعوث Mar Yaqub. If we will take this version of Baghdada. In Baghdada, we say we are a little bit worker and hard in our chant. So if we will take O Yudoye, ho mishtabaqlkhun bethkhun harbe, we will chant this like this. O Yudoye, ho mishtabaqlkhun bethkhun harbe, and some deacons they frap to make the rhythm. Lo malkutho, lo kohnutho, lombiyutho. While in Barthalla, they pray more speed, but not so hard. O yudoye, o mishd baqkhun bethkhun harbe. lo malkutho, lo makohnutho, lombiyutho. Here we have some different in the end of, but no problem. In Baghdad there is special also special melody for Ba'uth Mar Yaqub for the Rupto Dasqifutho, Holy Friday. But I will go to Mosul to see how in Mosul the mode it will change. Why? Because the principal melody they use another one, not the one we use. The one we use they chant it as an alternative, mshahalfo. So the first one it's O yudo yeho mishid baqilkhun bethkhun harbe lo kohnutho lo malkutho lo lombiyutho. So the second one O yudo ye o mishbaqkhun bethkhun harbe lo kohnutho lo o yudoye o mishbaqkhun bethkhun harbe lo kohnutho lombiyutho. There is another. Okay, I can say qorinan loch morio moran tol udhronan shma bu'uthan وبذرحم علنا في شوثا موران برحمك حوس علينا ألو هنرحم علينا. So now in Mosul we saw there is part which is Moran Brahmek Hus Alain Alohan Rahim Alain. It's not exist in the text, but they mentioned here with the melody. And we see the mode, it was mode in Baghdad and Barthalla, it was Kurd, but here it changed. It become another thing. So we saw there is mode change, there is type of chanting, it's change. We have addition part. It add. Now I will pass to the comparison of Nahira. Nahira, I took Nahira, and I think I have no enough time to go with Nahira. There is many things of Nahira, like we will see. There is no respected of rules of the mode, seventh mode, because they use here, they use a 3, 2nd, 7th, 5th, and there is a lot of melodies. They are specific for this rite of Nahira. So I will go to the last part, which is Hasho mode. It's so important to show. Can I ask Father Samir to come to chant very little part of Hasho, and I will explain you Hasho mode. Hasho mode, it's two, as you see, it's two tetrachord. The first one is Hijaz. Can you give him to? Okay, very good. The first one Hijaz, and the second one it's alternative. Sometimes it become Nahawand or minor, sometimes major, sometimes Bayat. I will ask Father Samir to give us the key, and then very short sentence.
Stomin qalos quryelayson تشبحت توديث ودرق لا سرور مطابد لا باطل أمينايث وابخل زبان وابخل عيد نشتود ناسق لذلك الحي الذي مات بالجسد وأحيا بموتي كل الراقدين لرب الأرواح وكل ذي جسد الذي يحيي ويميت وينزل للجحيم ويصعد منه الذي بين يديه نفوس كل البشر.
Thank you, Father Samir. Now I will declare what happened. When we see there is gam with two tetrachord. The first one it's Hijaz, and the second one is variable, but between three tetrachords. But when the recitation is the fourth mode, so it's not Hijaz, but it should be another one. It's not the case of Plagal, and it's the. So here I see the dominant and tonic. It's changed the rules. always we have recitation for the fourth note, but always we hear the Hijaz coming and going back. So this, if I will say like theologic idea, it's Hijaz. It's considered like sadness. So we have sadness as background of us. It's sadness, but above this sadness, we will see faith and hope and charity, with these three tetrachords. So this what I see in this very specific mode. And now we saw all the all thing. Many things I don't say them because you could read it in the paper, and I would like to say the last thing where I would need support. I would need support if there is ability to have Syrian Beth Gazo. This, sure, it will be in the manuscript, and maybe Professor Sebastian Brock is the one who can help us, and also for the hours prayer. Also, maybe we had many things lost by losing the manuscript, and if there is any person who could help us by giving us any additional recording, which is the base of my work way, because I gather recording, then there is I put the transcription of note for many melodies, then analyzing for all things, and also describing the real practice for this tradition. So thank you very much for your time, and sorry I take more than usual.
Thank you, Jalal Polus. Thank you for showing us that there is indeed a difference between the Eastern and Western traditions. I think the paper reflects that well, and also I think this is a preliminary stage of your analysis. It will need to be confirmed, but I think there are some interesting conclusions in the paper. Are there any questions to Polus from the participants?
Nobody? It means I give nothing.
No.
Yeah.
Several
here
questions.
I don't see them. Sorry.
We have Sebastian Brock.
It's can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My question is, do you think there could be a link between the Eastern Syrian Orthodox tradition and the Indian Syrian Orthodox tradition? Because the Beth Gazo Viso that's published in India is completely different from the Mardin volume. And far more, in the case of Madroshe, far more Madroshe listed than in the Mardin edition.
If I understand well, sure there is very strong relation with Eastern Church and Indian, as there is between East and West Syriac, because in my mind we are like the body. There is many parts, and all we are one. and we are specific in something and interacting with another things. But yeah, I don't understand how we will use the if there is Beth Gazo different in India, because I have no idea.
Father Palakal, you had a question as well?
Yeah, this was fascinating. Thank you. My question is in general to you, Paulos, and a few others. Can we evolve a theory on rhythm in Syriac chants? All your transcriptions showed regular rhythmic melody, but the sample that the other priest sang was not in rhythm, that was free-flowing. In my presentation, I'm going to talk about the Kanaya melody tomorrow. So based on the syllabic structure of the language, the poetry, has there been, can we think of a separate theory of rhythm? In my mind, I'm comparing it with a raga system in India, where you have the raga, the melody on one section, but the rhythmic structure, the meter, the talam itself is a separate entity and separate area of knowledge with its own theory. So can we think of anything like that in Syriac chants?
Yes, I believe it's very important. And as we say, Ivar Shmurshbaler, he put an theory, and we could see what I noted. I put as a text phrases like Qore Nanloch, Morio Moran. It's 4, 4, 4, 4. So I mentioned this to be not like musically, but the text it's give us this indication. And because in Syriac the music it's to support and to carry the text, therefore we see in general the music it's go on with the text. I don't put any another indication, but we could put in some notes where we feel the strong fable and fourth
accent
tone. Sure, it's important, but not to make like so for all notes, because there is some notes it's important, but the rest it's it flowing after those.
Okay.
Sorry, did you have another question?
Yes, please. The chants of the Holy Week, are they more non-rhythmic compared to chants of the other occasions?
Are they
more free-flowing, not rhythmically, not metric, strictly metrical? Without
no, they are metric. Very, very, very few which they are without or very open
rhythm.
Open rhythm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My third question, which I will revisit tomorrow, but as to all the scholars, is there a system of chanting the prose text, not the metrical verses, but prose text? How do you articulate prose text after the chant or before the chant? Is there a established system for that?
What is
prose text? It's the opposite of poetic.
Yes. The example that Father Samir gave, it's for for this part. And
Okay.
this mode, it doesn't use with the melodies, with the chants. It's only with the text that they are not poetic.
C'est une
Okay.
cantillation, it is a cantillation. No.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Like,
Okay.
it's like background for this weekend.
For the Hasho week.
Holy Week, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Talaj Ashur asked if you could give more information about what you call the theological interpretation of the tetrachord of the Hasho mode.
Yes, if she have time, yes. Yeah, here this three tetrachord we saw it's variation between major and minor and bayat, and which one gives some taste, and you can imagine this this mode. It's like tree with one source, and then there is a variable of fruit. Sometimes because, and it's theologic. I feel it's theologic idea to give this mode for this Holy Week, because it's take us from the sadness, from the grave until the resurrection, which there is power and hope and faith. So what if she can, yes. If there is something specific to show.
Yeah. I think what you want to say is that there is the music, the structure of the music, the structure of the tetrachord expresses theological truth, and so you believe that there is in the composition, the fathers who composed or used this mode put a theological interpretation. So we see some a typical Christian way to look at the music or to treat the music.
Yes, if we want to explain this musically, maybe we can't, because in our way in the music, the first tetrachord, it should be stable, not variable. And here, if we will take the first one as Hijaz is, it's not important here in this mode, but which is only like background, and we are recite to the fourth note, so it's in the middle. Is it clear, or we should?
I think the paper says
yes,
it clearly.
Yes,
yes
in the paper there is very much.
Yes, she says yes. It is very clear. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, it is very clear. She says. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Elias Kaserwani also has a question.
Oh, my professor.
We don't hear you, Professor.
Okay, now, do you hear me now? First of all, I would like to express that I'm proud of you, Jalal.
Thank you.
Second, I saw on one of your papers, you wrote Rast, and you named it major. At my knowledge, there is a difference between major and Rast. Having the third degree on the halfway in between Re and Fa, so mi half a tone, and then what would you name the ajam in that case? This is the first technical question. But is it really necessary to compare the Syriac nomination to the Arabic nomination? If I asked you this question, I can tell you my question in Arabic after if you want.
No, but I don't hear it
Okay.
very well.
Is it really necessary to compare the Syriac nomination of modalities to the Arabic? Is it necessary to do it? Because you know that siga in Persian si means three, ka means voice, so it is the third voice and by deduction, the third mode. Johar ka, Johar is four, and ka is the voice, and Johar ka means the fourth, the voice number four, if you want, and by deduction, the fourth mode. So even in Persian, their nomination is related to numbers, and our nomination is related to numbers. So why to compare them?
Another question?
No.
Okay. For rust and major, sure, with you, I know it's two tetrachord, but if you will speak with deacons, I spoke a lot. When I say to them major, they don't know what it is. Ajam, they don't know, and they chant major and they say rust. They name rust. So therefore, I put major rust, and rust I put it in italic to show its name. It's not what Arabic tetrachord now, which mean rust. And another thing, and you teach me this, the note, we will not say the microtone. In Iraq it's very high, and in Lebanon and Syria it's in the middle, and in
Egypt.
Egypt it's very low. So sometimes when I put note, they are in between, very very near to Ajam or to major, and they named rust. So therefore I put rust major, and they don't say we have Ajam in the names. And for the names of gams, you are right. The names of first, second, third. That what we used in the ecclesiastic scales, and I don't like to make mix between Arabic names and our names, which is first and second. But just I mentioned, I say it's like, because it's not the same treated, even if it's the same intervals, but they don't use in the same way. And there is who is Maqdisi, As'ad Maqdisi Somo. He give very very precisely the translate of name of the tetrachords.
Okay. Thank you. And if you allow me to suggest that, in case you want to make a comparison, in case just for explanation, so usually we compare the new to the old. Which one is older? So that we consider, do we consider the Syriac older, or you consider the Persian older? And it is to be proved. It is to be proved which one is older, so that we compare the new to the old instead of comparing the old to the new. I don't know.
in Arabic, I can't consider those tetrachords are Arabic, because as name Arabic, it mean before the people who habit in the desert. So they don't use even Hijaz, which is the name of city
of a region
in desert, but it's not their gam. It's come from Syria or Mesopotamia, because the rababa, which is the only instrument that they use, the rababa could not give you Hijaz. Therefore, how it will be? So those names of what we name now Arabic mode, it's came from Syriac and Mesopotamia and Persia, and so they heard this. And now if I will say to somebody the Qadmoyo or Trayono, maybe he will not understand. Therefore, I should give him what he understands today, this month.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I think Gabriel had a question that should be the last one. Gabriel,
sure. It's not a question, just a statement, just to add more to what Polus and Professor Kasrouani has mentioned about first the mode Ajam or Rast. According to the practice in Turkish music, they often use Makam Rast as Ajam, or very slight accent of a mi quarter tone. And often they transcribe or they notate Makam Ajam and Makam Rast as Ajam, as major, and they leave that accent tone up to the singer to sing, whether he wants to sing it as major, Ajam or Rast. And that's something has to do with the Turkish musical characteristics, and that's often used that way. And you also see the same concept in Syriac music. Often when we have Maqam Rast or Bi'oyo, in Syriac, some deacons or chanters use major mode to sing in their Bi'oyo. So this is very common confusion, or I would say just a theory to chant the Bi'oyo and Rast. And also a few more things regarding naming modes or tetrachords in Arabic or other languages. I would agree with Professor Kasrouani that we should stick to a certain concept of naming musical features in Syriac language itself. As we all know that when we use Arabic or Western musical term to describe Syriac chant or Syriac modes, does not completely define the characteristic of Syriac modes. As I have done before, I try to use Syriac terms, Syriac musical terms, to describe Syriac mode features. For example, such as Shalto, to describe, the note dominant. And for example, dominant. Dominant with the Syriac Shalto. In Syriac, the dominant note always come on the last note. Arabic music comes on the fourth note of the first tetrachord. Therefore, I think it's crucial to stick to Syriac terms, or to create or to select Syriac terms to describe Syriac music characteristics.
Thank you.
Can I add, please? Can I add a word, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, even though in between Arabic and Occidental, we have absolutely the same degree on the keyboard, which shows the Ajam, and the major in Occidental music. But if you hear Oriental singer singing on major, which is on Ajam, the behavior of the melody shows the difference, not only the degrees. That's why in my analysis, I kept one column, especially for the le comportement de la mélodie, le déroulement de la mélodie. So the comportement, which means the behavior of the melody itself, will impose the character, either it is Arabic or it is not Arabic, whatever. Not, this is the difference. Even playing on piano on major, sometimes when you play Oriental with the good feeling, it doesn't seem at all Occidental.
Yes. Thank you, Professor. Very well. I think we... Still someone asking a question? No. I think we need to, we would like to go to some questions for the lecturers of this morning, which we didn't have time to make. There were questions online, but maybe also among the participants. Thank you very much, Jalal.
Thanks for you.
So, Professeur Maboumrad.
Oui, merci. Je vais m'exprimer en français, mais peut-être je vais m'exprimer également en anglais. En fait, je rebondis sur la discussion à l'instant pour poser une remarque ou une suggestion. For Dr. Gabriel, I think, you are speaking about using Syriac or indigenous lexicon, or this lexic, this model or melodic lexicon or terminology to describe the system. But it is very interesting to go in this way, in this path. But there is two perhaps observations. First, you are using the notion of comma in your presentation, and it is interesting, but it is not. It is imported, and perhaps from Raouf Yakta, or perhaps from the Aleppo system of the beginning of the 20th century. There is no need now today to use the Halderian comma to describe the system, the intonation and the intervals. It is better to use sense. It is in general musicology is more useful perhaps. So it is one. I was very interested in your presentation and your paper, but this is I'd like to listen to your argumentation to why are you using comma, because it is not an emic attitude, it is ethic in phonemic and phonetics. So you are importing a system. And another question to Dr. Aydin is about what is the main difference between the third and the fifth mode in your presentation. It is very interesting how you present this this typology, but the six other modes are very clear to me. But what is the real distinction between the third and the fifth? Because there is perhaps it is only I saw in your presentation the F, the perhaps the second final, and another proposition about terminology. We are working now in general musicology since works of Jean-Jacques Nattier and François Picard, and what we are proposing in our Revue des Traditions Musicales. So there is a terminology which could be used, and when we work about the ecclesiastical modes or ecclesiastical traditions, it is interesting to use something which is used in other ecclesiastical tradition, like the Romano-Franc tradition, which is Gregorian, and with using the terminology of Don Jean Clair with final and tenor. It is better than dominant, I think. So you are going to a very interesting place. So I hope you'll adopt this terminology instead of final and dominant, final and tenor or tenor. It is sorry for these 2-3 questions, and I'd like to listen to Father and Professor Elik Wani. I was very delighted with your presentation, as always, and it is very instructive. I'd like to have your opinion on the typology that proposed Dr. Aydin for the 8 modes, and if the plagal solution which is proposed in this typology could be an answer to your problematics about the non-existence of a plagal characterization of inside the Syriac Orthodox typology of modes.
So maybe Gabriel Aydin, would you like to answer to this question of use of terminology, emic or ethic terminology?
Sure. Just a quick answer to your 3 questions, long questions. I'll try to just squeeze them all in one answer. First, using commas in the transcription of chants. I would like to just draw your attention to Malfon Nuri Skandar's notation when he noted the Gazo hymns. He used also commas to describe the pitch difference between different chant traditions, such as Mardin, Edessa, and Turabdin. As a suggested, each tradition often uses a different pitch intervals for certain modes. Therefore, I think it's crucial to at least to preserve these melodies using comma system for the future generations. And I think it's our duty to preserve whatever we receive from our forefathers. I mean, to preserve them the way we receive them, and then it's up to others to whether use them or eliminate them. And this also reminds me of what Professor Al-Hajj was talking about, the quarter-tone or the comma system, as he wasn't encouraging to use any sort of quarter-tones or quarter-tone symbols or commas in Syriac transcription, Syriac chant transcriptions. However, he was leaving it up to the singer or chanter to use his musical ability or senses to sing these core tones. But in my opinion, I think it's important to do it, at least for now, to preserve the tradition from getting lost or changed. And second, about naming pitch, in turbos, such as dominant or tonic. Again, the way Syriac modes function are different than the Arabic, mode maqam concept. For example, in Syriac music, chants or the melodic movement is based on the concept or the chant form that it's known as shoroyo musoyo shulomo, and the dominant note, either tonic or dominant note, it's shaped according to the melodic movement that is distributed according to this form, whether A, B, A, or A, B, C, or in Syriac shoroyo musoyo shulomo. So it has a different, it functions differently than Turkish or other music traditions. I think therefore it's also important to at least label them using Syriac terms to fully describe, their functionality, their meaning, and the way they function in the structure of the hymn.
I'm sorry. For the two answers, I'm not very convinced, because about the commas is not inside the Syriac tradition. It is imported from it is a Halderian commas, I think, and it is it was used by Ottoman and Turkish theologians, and also by Ali Darwish and Tawfiq al-Sabaq from Aleppo. I understand that in Aleppo it was a type of thinking for the Arabic or the Ottoman or the Mevlevi, etc. Theoreticians, but it is the Halderian comma. So it is not inside nor the Arabic tradition, nor the Ottoman tradition, and not for the Syriac or the Byzantine. And also for the second answer, I am not very.
Sorry, Nida Abu Murad.
Yes.
I find this conversation very interesting about the terminology, but I think we should leave it for maybe a private discussion between you, or maybe another time or another conference. We would have another few questions before we make a break before the concerts, because we have the concert in live from Quaraquosh in 15 minutes. So I would like to ask from the audience, from Luca Ricosa, Gabriel Aydin, there was another question, and I had the same question. When you speak about local variations in micro-intervals, you speak about the way they are doing these micro-intervals in different geographical areas. Is it also, are there differences between singers from the same place, or singers from the same place are doing exactly, so more or less exactly the same intervals, micro-intervals?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get the question, Professor Bouvier.
The question is to know if those micro-intervals are really linked to a location or to specific singers.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, we have various chant traditions, and each tradition, based on its geographical location, uses accentuated pitch, intervals that different from other chant traditions. And I think I showed a couple examples in my presentation this morning. For example, if I give you the Shbi'oyo, the seventh mode, the way it's practiced in Syria, for instance, it's the G, or the soul, the sound of the soul is more close to Fa diez or Sol bemol. But the way it's practiced in Turkey, it's more higher. It's very closer to G natural, or just a little bit lower than G or Sol natural. So there are some differences when it comes to pitch intervals as practiced between Syriac chant traditions. And also, again, this could be some influence of other music traditions in the area.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions among the audience?
We had two from the audience, one from one of the outside participants. Are the 8 kinotho characterized by different melodic formulas similar to the sayr of Arabic maqam?
Yes. So in Syriac, we have we don't have like formulas as in Arabic, maqam system. But as I mentioned, we have short melodic phrases, and through which we can identify each qinto, each mode. And these are created through gense, or as you call it, tetrachord, using the concept of tetrachords, creating short melodic phrases to identify each qinto. Yes, and we use these melodic, short melodic phrases, as I call them, qinotho mlahmotho, composite melodic elements. Something similar to Arabic maqam, I would say.
Thank you. Then the last question, when Barthalla associates modes to liturgical canons, does he refer to Byzantine canons or Syriac equivalents?
I'm not sure if I can answer that question. I would ask other, presenters if they can answer that question. Maybe. I don't know.
It's a question of.
Can I suggest, please?
Yes.
I think he is referring to Persian tradition, and he mentioned it anyway in his text.
So, like when he was talking about the modes, he was referring to the Persian 12 modes. And that was that the question?
That the first mode is associated with the canon of nativity. The seventh, I think, or the fifth, with the canon of Easter and so forth. What are those canons? Are they the canons of the Byzantine liturgy or other canons?
I'm afraid I won't be able to answer the question.
I think that.
Say something. Sorry, maybe just let's have Tala answer.
Thank you, Veronique. I wanted to say something about the terminology debate. Nida is uncomfortable with the terminology Gabriel and other people use for very good reasons, and that's the fact that terminology here is not only about words, it's about concepts, and that's why we get lost when we talk about different things with the same words or the same things with different words. So it's an issue of conceptual analysis. And that's why answering the question about Barthalla book in the way that it was presented this morning is another layer of confusion. So I'm not giving an answer, I'm just explaining what's happening in the conversation. The issue here is conceptual, and it is being manifested very clearly in the terms, in the words. So that's one of the major problems in the study of Syriac chant, is that there are, throughout the history of Western and local interests in the intellectual process of understanding and executing this music, and in practicing it, there have never been a synthesis between theory and practice, which I kind of said generally, but this is exactly the problem we're talking about. What is dominant? Dominant means absolutely nothing in Syriac. In the Syriac musicological discourse, in the actual practice, dominant is a harmonic concept that actually developed in very, I think Peter Jeffery can, if he wants to talk about that. But when we use these terms interchangeably, and when we talk about canon, what does canon mean? And when we say, what did Barthalla mean with canon? There are layers upon layers of disjuncture in terminological, conceptual, and historical terms. So that's all I wanted to say, is that unless we talk about very specific things at very specific points in very specific times, we might continue to have these cross interlocutions. So that was really everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
I think Professor Kesserwani, you wanted to say something? You were starting to answer.
I asked him a question which is without answer. Please.
Oh, yes. Your question to Elias Keswani. Professor Keswani, your microphone is muted.
Ah oui, excusez-moi. Quelquefois, être discret et fermer toujours le micro ne sert pas beaucoup. Du fait que vous ayez présenté votre conférence en langue française, je me permets de vous répondre en français. D'abord, la non-existence du système plagal en comparaison ou bien en rapport avec l'autente, je le propose étant résultant de mes recherches à moi. Parce que chez moi, dans mes propres recherches, je suis maintenant presque vers la fin. Il me reste quelques tâches photos pour finir absolument toutes les notations et les analyses et pour préparer les derniers textes pour l'édition. Mais selon toute cette longue vie d'une quarantaine d'années d'expérience et de comparaison, et vous savez que j'ai été à Azek, j'ai été en Turquie, j'ai été en Irak, j'ai été en Syrie, j'ai suivi même quelques chantres jusqu'à l'Australie où j'ai pu enregistrer le répertoire entier de A à Z, personnellement, face à face, avec des chantres qui étaient connus comme grands chantres et qui représentaient authentiquement leur tradition. Et je comparais la tradition du patriarche Yacoub III à toutes ces versions que j'ai vues, mais je n'ai jamais rencontré quelque chose qui puisse constituer ce qui s'appelle plagal et authentique. Maintenant, ceci ne veut pas dire que je mésestime le travail de M. Gabriel. Je veux bien l'étudier avant de donner mon opinion à son sujet.
Merci beaucoup. Je crois que nous allons devoir interrompre cette séance parce qu'il nous reste 10 minutes avant d'être live avec Quaraquosh pour le concert. Et nos techniciens souhaitent être sûrs que tout se passe bien avec la ligne. Mais je pense que nous aurons encore du temps de discussion largement demain à la fin des séances. Je remercie sincèrement tous les participants, spécialement ceux qui ont présenté des papiers aujourd'hui. Peter Jeffery, Père Lyon Nissan et Jalal, merci beaucoup pour vos présentations. Et donc nous nous retrouvons à 16h pour le concert en direct depuis Quaraquosh. Merci à tous.
Merci.